Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Ian Gotts. Ian, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
Ian, I'm going to take the audience just a little bit about your background and see what we're going to cover. You started off with British Rail as a graduate engineer, grew up through the ranks to becoming the CIO of the Department of Social Security in the UK. You've managed quite a number of very large projects with over 500 people on the project itself. Then became an entrepreneur, founder, CEO of Nimbus, got acquired by a company called TIBCO. Currently the founder of Elements.com, contributing editor of Salesforce Ben, and a Forbes Technology Council member. And I'm now coming to the fun parts. Author of over 10 books, blogger, and what I like. And I'm going to start off with the last statements which I found on the internet. You're based out of San Francisco and a 787.
Yes.
Tell me about that last one. What does that mean?
787 is a Dreamliner. I seem to spend a lot of time flying to events. I speak at a lot of events. I was in the UK last week speaking at 4 events. I flew back on a Dreamliner actually yesterday evening. So yeah, I seem to spend time on an aircraft. Not all of this can be done online. I mean, lots of stuff can be done online, but I think face to face, that's still so important.
Good. Okay. In my experience, you've grown up as a graduate engineer. You have this IT background. Most IT people I know have stage fright. They don't really engage for groups, large groups of people, but you've been able to engage for quite big groups, I understand. So how did that happen?
I think if you start running big projects, you're no longer the technologist. If you're a program manager, you're essentially telling a story and getting everybody to going in the right direction, going in the same direction. And as you manage bigger and bigger projects, your job is to think about the problems that are going to occur and then make sure you've moved those out of the way so the team can keep going. And I found myself on stage more and more, loved it. Behind me, sorry, that way behind me.
Yeah.
I played bass in a cover band. So I'm on stage there. In fact, I'm oddly enough more concerned and frightened about being on stage playing the bass than I am with a microphone in my hand. But maybe that's just because I've been doing it for more time. But also, I think if you are passionate as I am, and I think you are, and the founder of the podcast is about giving back, sending the elevator down, you need to be able to communicate and you need to be able to present on stage. And I got better and better at it. I then started doing some improv comedy classes to improve my speaking. And I guess it's just something I enjoyed doing, got better at,
Okay.
got great feedback, and just kept on going.
Okay, is it a little bit of a chicken and egg because you started a story, I believe, halfway? Okay, as a program manager, you're communicating. So were you a good communicator? Did that make you a program manager or CIO before that? Or were you a CIO and then did you learn how to communicate? So what came first?
Um, I think I'm an engineer first. If anybody asks me what am I, I'm an engineer. I love fixing things. I love building things. And what happened was I came out of British Railway, or I was in British Railways, decided that I needed management expertise and put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll go down and work in a workshop on a shop floor. And I found myself in charge of 110 guys 6 months after university. So I grew up very quickly. The depot engineer who said, look, I won't let you drown. I'll let you flounder at times. But he was a really good mentor and coach. And I was immediately starting to manage people. So therefore, you have to be good at communicating. And whether I was good at it initially, I certainly had to learn very
Yeah.
quickly with baptism of fire. And I think one of the skills that people tell me I've got is the ability to take complex ideas and make them seem simple, either breaking them down so I can understand them or turn them into analogies that people understand. And I've been doing that my whole life. And I think that rather than being the great orator, I think that's what communicates is how do you connect with people where they are rather than you being very intellectual and trying to make them try and understand
Yeah,
how what you're talking about.
got it. So making complex things simple, does that mean most things in your view are presented or perceived to be too complex are really simple? Or can you explain complex things in a simple manner? Where do you think the truth
Uh,
is?
I think people have often overcomplicate things either because they haven't thought it through or because it makes them seem clever. And marketing is classic. Marketing has all these marketing terms that try and make things sound very
Yeah.
impressive, and actually, it's fairly basic. I mean, and I think stories work well. I mean, through the generations, stories have prevailed. So one of the things I talk about in terms of AI, and I know we're jumping massively forward to where we are now.
Go ahead.
I'm, I'm on stage talking about AI all the time, and at the moment, people are building agents, and people are struggling to get the deployment of agents. They may be building them, but the senior management are going, "Well, I'm not sure I'm really comfortable using this because it's a bit of a black box. You've written some instructions, and you're expecting me to be confident this works." And the story I was told tell is about the Waymo, the self-driving cars that you see in some of the American cities. And a Waymo is essentially doing quite a simple job. It's like take you from A to B based on your destination. Is there's a Google map. Obey the rules of the road. Stay on the road, not on the pavement. Uh, Try not to hit anybody. So it's a fairly simple process. But the way that people are currently building agents is they're making a black box. They're actually writing all these detailed instructions that no one understands. And that's the same as getting in a Waymo, where you get in and the windows turn black, the doors lock, and they let you out at the other end. And people are very uncomfortable. I mean, in the future, we'll be happy with that, but at the moment, we're not. And again, what we're doing, and certainly in Elements.Cloud, we've created the idea you can draw a process diagram that then builds the agent. Now, that the reason for the diagram is not just building the agent, but it actually gives a level of transparency and governance. So transparency, governance, AI agents sounds really complicated, but people can relate to the Waymo example. And I think it's that ability to turn it into something that everyone understands and then also have a visceral reaction. You say to people, "Would you be happy getting in a Waymo if the wind or if all the windows turn black?" And we're like, "Absolutely not." Great. Okay, now I've got your attention, and I think that's maybe the trick around storytelling is you've got to engage at an emotional level rather than an intellectual one.
Okay. Now, this might be a question I would assume a lot of the audience members have is, do you need to be an expert in the field on the topic you're presenting on stage?
Absolutely. I don't think you can present a topic unless you're only presenting 30% of what you know.
So how does that, I mean, you say you talk a lot about AI, so that means you have hands-on AI experience.
Yeah, so we've been building agents for the
Yeah.
last 2 years inside the company. We have AI agents on our org chart. So we actually think of them as supporters for the existing staff.
Hold on. I've seen a lot of org charts in my life, but you seriously have an AI agent in your org chart.
Well, multiple. We have probably 50 or 60. So dotted around the org chart, supporting different parts of the organization, we have the agents. And they may be Gemini agents, they may be Salesforce, they may be Intercom, ChatGPT. But we have all across the business, we have agents that are helping our teams to work more effectively.
Wow, you have. So who came up with this idea?
Uh, well, I mean, a couple of years ago when GPT first came out, I was in early starting to play with it. Um, we got good at writing prompts, we got good at understanding it, and then our HR team went, "Well, these if they're digital employees, why aren't they on the org chart?" And we went, "Yeah, of course."
Hmm.
So it's just a natural progression, but it's we now have agent building muscles inside the company where if we're about to do something, we naturally think, well, AI should be able to do this. We think AI first. If it
Yeah.
can't do it, then we think about how humans could do it. But it's also because we've got good at building agents, we can, it's almost like Lego bricks. We've got enough building blocks. We can now build them fairly quickly. Maybe I ought to bring this to life. Some examples. The easiest agent, expenses policy. Everyone around our company, around the world, is flying somewhere, is trying to fill out expenses. They're asking the HR team, oh, on this level, what shall I claim? It was a very easy agent. We had well documented policies, easy to stand that up as an agent. Another agent is intercom. So if you go to our externally facing website, there's chats there. That chat accesses 300 support articles. Intercom's the name of the product we use. Their chat is, or their agent is called Fin. That Fin will answer those questions in multiple languages. Quite interesting. What happens if you ask in, say, Portuguese, it will turn the Portuguese question into English. It will find the answer in our English written documentation, bring it back out, turn it back, the answer back into Portuguese and give it to you. What's interesting is if you try and ask a question in French, it will now ask you in Portuguese because it thinks you're now Portuguese. If you start a new session and start speaking French, it will then answer in French. But suddenly, our ability to operate in different countries and have all those support articles available, that AI is doing that for us automatically. So there are some amazing things that are now possible, but you need to make sure you have a fairly open mind to it and get started. I mean, we started 2 years ago, so we've got a huge head start in terms of our confidence in it. It's not that thing you use; it's just another. We could create automation, we could do it manually, or we could use AI. We decide based on the use case what we should be using. It's not the AI project. So I think it's evolved inside the organization.
Great. I definitely want to continue discussing how you use AI, but first to give the audience a little bit of context, what's the core business of Elements.Cloud?
Uh, we're basically a change intelligence platform. So we are helping people drive business change. Our first go-to-market is Salesforce, but we can do it for anything. And the ability to make changes to Salesforce at pace requires you to have a good understanding about like why you're changing it, business process, way of capturing requirements in a considered way, writing user stories, like what do you want changed?
Mhm.
But then the other aspect is we we pull all the metadata out of Salesforce so you can then make sense of it and understand the impact of making any changes. And what's interesting is those two things have come together where we can now look at the way Salesforce has been configured, ask a question, and it will then draw a process diagram about how it works, which has been almost the holy grail for the last sort of 9 years of, I think, 300 man years of effort. But that's where we've got to. But because we've got so much rich data there, so we're helping people drive change for Salesforce, but ultimately for other systems as well as we expand out into those markets.
Okay. So coming back to using AI engines, putting them in your org chart, um, how do the employees look at that? It, is there a good balance, I would say, healthy relationship, or are still maybe people a little bit concerned?
I think because we've grown up over the last couple of years using small tools to support what we're currently doing rather than replace it, rather than saying it's an AI mandate to reduce headcount. I think people have grown up with a healthy working relationship with AI. But let's put it that way, which
Okay.
is they're looking at it to support. They also are not looking to replace. They recognize at the moment you need to be so the results of AI are based on how good your questions are and how well you've
Mhm.
prepared the question, and then how well you've validated the answer. So the way we think about it is we are training interns, and AI is an intern. You don't say to your intern, "Great, you've now joined. Here's the phone. Here's our list of customers. Chat to a few and see what you can do." No, you might say, "Well, first job to be done is I'd like you to look at the top accounts, identify all the open cases, all the open opportunities, prepare a list of some of the actions we ought to take and prioritize them." That's a job to be done. If you define that, an agent does a great job. If you just say, "Oh, can you help me with my accounts?" Well, you're going to end up with a pretty poor result. And I think we've been seduced into that way of thinking because when ChatGPT first came out, we all went, "Oh, write me a poem, write me a
Yeah.
song." And it didn't matter what the answer was. But we're using agents to do deterministic tasks. Look at an account, give me a list of actions, tell me what I should be doing. That's a lot more structured. The same way as this call is being recorded and the AI companion is going to be doing something a lot more structured than just go, you had a conversation, here are two or three thoughts, and I wrote a song about it. I mean, we need to be a lot more focused on how we use agents.
And is that also where still the human element comes in? It's the humans who determine what the intern needs to be trained on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's what I think. We are the last generation who will only manage humans. We're now looking at, okay, how do we manage humans and agents? So anyone who's listening, who's in the middle of their midst of their career, you will be having to think about managing agents the same way as you manage people. How do you hire them, as in specify what you need? How do you train them? I build them. How do you govern them? What are you measuring? People talk about testing an agent. You can't test an agent. You can evaluate an agent the same way as you can evaluate a human. You can evaluate how well they're doing their job. If they're doing well, then you promote them by giving them more tasks. If they're not doing so well, then you either need to train them or replace them. So I think there's some unique challenges in terms of thinking about how you go around that agent life cycle, but also the relative balance of humans and agents. Okay, is this person using agent? Yes. Are they using it well? So we're evaluating how well our teams are using agents. And I mean, this is all uncharted territory. I'm afraid I have no answers apart from the fact that you need to go into it open-minded and as passionately as we're doing it to make sure that you engage.
Okay. Does that mean do you let's say judge people if they use an agent or don't use an agent as uh, uh so how do you is it like the story goes like a doctor with an AI support staff is a better doctor than a doctor without? So do you how do you measure success of individuals in relation to the fact that they have access to AI or not, and might have very valid reasons. Look, we should not use this in this case.
Yeah, okay. So it's part of it is thinking about the outcomes. What are the
Yeah.
results you're getting back? Is the work they're doing actually more effective because they're using agents more effectively? But also, are they using it within some of the guardrails that we'd expect, which is we shouldn't be using particular agents in certain ways with personal data. So it's about using the tools the right way. But you also asked the question, which is, how would I evaluate someone whether they're using AI? If I said, okay, did you use AI for do that? And they went, oh no, not really. You got to ask the question, okay, why aren't you using the tools in front of you? Or why aren't you at least asking the question? I'm sure AI could do that. And because I think that's what is moving our company forward so quickly is because people ask that question all the time, which is almost, I'm sure AI could support me in this, rather than as an afterthought, doing it and going, God, that's really hard. And then someone else going, you realize AI could have done that. You're like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah. Uh, so the use this almost sounds like we're getting into a world where we know that digitization is changing the business process, but this is like BPR on steroids. It's really completely disrupting the way we're going to organize ourselves.
Absolutely, yes. But also, we built an agent that's a business analysis agent. You have a conversation with it and get it, and it will then document your business process for you. It's really good. And it took us about a day to build. Now, it's interesting. Again, in thinking about how the way we built that agent, the large language model knows a lot about how businesses work. It knows how consultants behave.
Yeah,
So you don't need to teach it all of that. But what you do need to do is you need to teach what the business analysis process feels like, what an input feels like, scope, outcomes, constraints, and you need to know what the output looks like. Maybe it's a set of business processes, inputs, activities, roles, and so on. So you don't need to teach it the act of being a consultant. It's really good at that because the large language model does that.
good. Okay.
So I mean, and you watch it. It's really and so I'd like to. Could you document a process for, say, I want a customer to submit a testimonial. Often customers are sitting there going, I'd love to write something, but I don't really know what to write, and they're staring at a blank page. if they could have a discussion with an agent that would help them, and it's thinking about how they'd use elements and what the benefits were and the top three favorite features, and then it would then present it back as a for approval. So that's the process we want to try and document. So we gave it some ideas about that, but really interesting question, which we said, so what have I missed? And the agent came back and went, well, have you thought about governance? Have you thought about how we're going to sign this off? Have you thought about what any compliance issues? So that one question that you ask, what
Yeah.
have I forgotten, which a good consultant would always
Yeah.
do. Now, you still need to be good at specifying what you want, and you still need to be good at validating the outcome. But a lot of that grunt work that you and I used to do, which is like draw a process diagram and then people
Mhm.
coming back and saying they're not happy. But there's one last thing which I think is really interesting is that when you or I were consultants, we do business re-engineering, and that our client or our stakeholders would go, oh, I'm not sure that's quite right, and it would be them versus us. Now, when AI creates it, now it's you and the stakeholders together going, oh, well, AI didn't do a very good job, and we are collaboratively fixing it rather than being sort of combative, which is, Fritz, I thought you were really good at financial services processes, and this doesn't seem to be very good. Now it's the other way around, which is
Okay. So it's
actually
also changing the dynamic from a client-supplier relationship to one of an extended enterprise almost, where you're just bringing your
absolutely,
tools.
absolutely.
Okay.
And the process is drawn in a couple of minutes. And as the models get faster and faster, we'll almost do this in real time. In fact, we've got an agent at the front end that will do the business analysis, then an agent that builds the process diagram, and then we've got an agent coach at the other end, which will look at it and go, I've got some suggested improvements. So I think you talk about disruption. I think if you're a consultant, there is a huge disruption coming through here. No
Okay.
longer can you be a good generic consultant. There's no such thing as that anymore. You need to be a specialist. You need to have industry expertise or a discipline expertise or good at managing programs or something to step up.
That's good advice to have that in-depth knowledge. Now, Ian, actually want to come back to something you said way in the beginning of our interview, and I want to slowly end with that as well, because you mentioned one of the very first things you mentioned is being on a shop floor at British Rail. For me, it sounded like that was one of the milestones in your life, or benchmark. A, was it? And what were the other, let's say, milestones in your life where you say, yeah, that's where I've really learned something, and that's something I was going to cherish and take on board?
I think all the milestones have been at a point where I've gone, that's a difficult decision to make and that's quite scary, but I need to do it. I could have happily sat in some offices at British Railways and I said, no, I need shop floor experience, I need management experience, and I put my hand up to do that. We then got to a point where British Railways couldn't take me any further, and I said, right, I need to go and find a consulting firm to work for, and I applied for every single one. And luckily got an interview with only one, which was Anderson Consulting, and actually got the job. But even there was a big recession hit, and I went, okay, let's think about this. Who is always going to have jobs? Oh, it's government or government related, managing big programs. So I put my hand up and said, I want to go and do that. So there was, I think, making the decisions, which means you're outside your comfort zone, and and then the decision to leave Accenture to go and set a company up was probably rooted a number of years earlier, where someone said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to be retired by 40." And retired means you've got the flexibility to make your own decisions rather than being tied because you have to have a job.
Yeah.
And that gave me the space to, I wasn't 40, but it gave me the space to go, I could go and become an entrepreneur. The first company I set up didn't work, but we bounced back from that and said, okay, now we're up and running. I think being an entrepreneur is really hard. Entrepreneur, the best things are the best days ever, and the worst days are the worst days ever. And you need to be able to get between those. And I think we've got certainly people in our organization now who've not grown up with an entrepreneurial mindset. They're employees. But I think now every company, certainly technology company with AI changing things, everything feels like the first day of being an entrepreneur now. And I think that's quite painful for people who
Yeah.
want a bit more stability. And I think we all need to Salesforce's CEO Mark Benioff says you need a beginner's mindset. It really is that. You need every day is another new day going, okay, what's happening next? And I think if you're not comfortable with change, it's going to be a difficult 5 or 10 year period or even longer. You need to be able to be confident with change, but also make sure you've got a bit of a safety net. When I worked with Accenture, a really important milestone. There's a book here somewhere. I'm sure I could find it called "Richest Man in Babylon." He said, "Like, put 10% of what you earn away." So one time, I obviously when I first got started, salary and it just covered living expenses. But my first promotion, I got a 10% salary raise, and that 10% went straight in the bank account. And over time, that just gently topped up until I was in a point where I had enough of a little buffer there, which meant I could actually go and do an entrepreneurial thing. And I think having those options, and if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard. And therefore, trying to build that buffer in, which is, you know, you spend less on things, or you do fewer things, or you don't have that holiday, just so you can build that buffer, which then gives you options.
That's good advice. And it's also what I picked up on the way I would reformulate your advice is you can create your own milestones by asking yourself the question, how can I challenge myself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we're still doing that. The current company, we're still challenging ourselves, and you can hear that I'm excited about the future. I'm One of the things I think is being passionate about things. I'm passionate about playing bass. I mean,
Yeah.
I sailed competitively. I was fairly successful sailing boats. I was in the Olympic squad, then did some stuff around international events. Moved to San Francisco, decided to do something different. I said to my wife, "What do you want to do?" She said, "I want to sing in a band." I said, "Fantastic, I'll support you." She said, "No, I want to sing in a band with you." So, "Well, I don't play anything." She said, "Go and learn."
Yeah.
I learned to play the bass, and we now play in a tribute band. So we're playing festivals and weddings and events, sort of 5 or so years after starting. So I think you also need to find some other passions outside work that get you as excited, and I think that's what keeps you young and keeps you moving forward.
Great advice. Tribute to which bands are you playing? What's the favorite your top three songs you're playing?
So we're a British tribute band. So that's the aim out here. What are the favourites? Oddly enough, Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson, Uptown Funk. You might go, that's not a British band, that's not a British song. It
Yeah.
is actually. It's Mark Ronson.
Yeah.
That's obviously got a strong bass part. What else? Just learning a new Queen song. What, I ought to remember what the song is. Just learning it.
Well, it's Queen. That's good by itself.
Absolutely. And again, we just played the San Francisco Ballet, their after party for 5 nights, and a couple of songs we played there were, I know, "Tainted Love" by Soft Cell, and what we started with Jessie J, "Bang Bang." So we play a whole range of stuff, but it's just again, it's great to have something that you're passionate about that's more than just work. It's a bit more well-rounded.
Great advice, Ian. One final question. How do you want the world to remember you?
Don't Stop Me Now. Sorry, that was the Queen song. Um, I, I want to be remembered as someone who genuinely cared about sending the elevator down and helping other people. It's great. I mean, you hear of people they've been massively successful and all they want to do is tell you about it because it makes them feel clever. For me, it's if I've learned something, how do we share it with somebody else? How do we get everyone to have as much fun as I've had over the last like 40 years and planning to have for the next 40?
Ian, that's why I'm so honored and glad you are on the brand called you because that's what it's all about. Bringing the elevator down. I like that phrase. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called you.